So where is Newcastle United's priority this January? Well, in truth, it could be one of several positions. They are short of quality and short of bodies kind of across the whole of the team. But if I had to pick one area of the team to improve, it would be that midfield. It would be in particular the number 6 position, bringing in a defensive-minded midfielder, someone who can just protect the back four, sit deep as well, and stop opposition teams from hitting Newcastle on the counter. That is what has cost them over the last 6 weeks or so. In fact, it's been an issue, I think, from towards the end of last season. Wasn't fixed in the summer, it needs to be fixed this January, but of course financial fair play constraints are making Newcastle's task in the January window all that little bit harder. Calvin Phillips is the main name being linked to Newcastle United, but an astronomical loan fee looks like that one won't happen. Can they manoeuvre in the transfer market? Can they sell someone and bring in some money to maybe go out and buy someone potentially? Who knows? I don't envy the task of the transfer team at Newcastle United trying to bring in players this month. It's always a horrible month to buy players, to loan players. And then plus you've got everything that comes with being Newcastle United, the perceived richest club in the world. No one wants to help Newcastle United out, but they need additions across the midfield, across the squad. For me, as I say, midfield would be the number 1 priority this January.
So the one position that I think Newcastle United need to strengthen in the January window is, of course, in the centre of midfield. You can talk all day about needing a right midfielder or a left back or cover at centre back, but it's abundantly clear that if anywhere is going to get strengthened this month, it should be in the middle of the park. You've got Joe Linton potentially out for the season. You've got Sandro Tonali definitely out for the season. You've got Joe Willock and Elliot Anderson also not back from their injuries. You've got Bruno Guimaraes, one booking away from a 2-game suspension. That would leave Eddie Howe with just Sean Longstaff and Lewis Miley as 2 out-and-out central midfielders. I think they've got to try and utilise that loan market. You've got to look at the likes of Calvin Phillips or somebody from the continent, or you've got to just push those summer plans forward and do what they did with Anthony Gordon last year. And even though they didn't really want to spend any money last January, they paid 40 million, they got Gordon over the line, and I think they might just have to do that this time around. It's obvious that Newcastle United need reinforcements in the middle of the park.
For me, I'd be looking to bring in another centre forward. Typical really, because I like to see attacking football, but look, at the end of the day, Newcastle United do have some issues in the front line. Callum Wilson currently not fit, and Alexander Isaac has also had his injury issues this season. So for me, the thought of both of those players going down with an injury is a bit of a worrying one from a Newcastle point of view, and I think really they need more backup, whether it's a younger striker who comes in, whether it's somebody on loan. I don't think that really matters. I just think Newcastle United do need another layer of cover in that department. For me, I'd go for a striker, and I'd go for one pretty quickly, because the games will soon be racking up again for Newcastle. They suffered with injuries at the start of the season. They suffered with fixture congestion. They need more options in attack, and I'd go for a centre forward.
Well, this may well be the most unoriginal, predictable answer, but if there's one position I would strengthen this month, it would be in the middle of the park. I would be bringing in a midfielder. Even though Newcastle have a number of them on their books, you look at their options at the moment, you look at their options even after the winter break, they're going to be so reliant on Bruno Guimaraes, who even against Man City was playing on with a knock. They're going to be so reliant on Lewis Miley, who we all forget is still so young at 17, and of course they're so reliant on Sean Longstaff staying fit. Beyond that, you know, Elliot Anderson, Joe Willock, they're still a while from coming back. Joe Linton out for a minimum of 6 weeks, so the depth below the current fit players it's non-existent really. You know, Lewis Hall might have to play in the middle of the park, for example, or even Fabian Schär, and that's not an ideal situation for Newcastle to be going in. I know they have players coming back, but you know, the big one, Sandro Tonali, not going to play again this season with his suspension. So I think it's a bit of a gamble if they don't strengthen there. I get the market is not good at the moment. The value isn't there necessarily compared to the summer. But if Newcastle will get one player in, I think that's the key area. Certainly as well, you look at the midfield, you know, some of the goals Newcastle conceded. I think if they could have a little bit of a shield there, a different option maybe to throw on, that could make a world of a difference.
Where did Newcastle United need to strengthen this January transfer window? Well, for me, purely and simply, it's centre midfield. even in the summer, people were crying out for number 6 or CDM. With the added injuries to Joe Linton, to Elliot Anderson, to Joe Wilgick, to the suspension of Sandra Tonali, it just leaves Newcastle really short in that area, and they really need to start looking at strengthening this window, or this season could just could really nosedive. An injury to Bruno, Sean Longstaff and Newcastle are really running on fumes in that centre midfield area. I'm stood here in Manchester, got the National Football Museum behind me. For me, Newcastle need to be targeting this city. Come back to Manchester, speak to Man City, try and get that Calvin Phillips deal over the line. I think it'd be a perfect opportunity for Newcastle, the perfect player for them to fit in that midfield between now and the end of the season.